Hey, welcome back to the State of Love and Trust. It's episode 281, and this week we are celebrating 35 years of Pearl Jam with journalist and friend of the show, Jessica Letkemann. 15 years ago, she wrote a mini book called Music for Rhinos, detailing the origin story of Pearl Jam. So we're going to relive that and give our tentpole moments over Pearl Jam's fantastic 35-year career. I'm very excited. I think you should be too. It's all next on the State of Love and Trust.
Have I got a little story for you?
Hey, I'm Mike McCready from Pearl Jam.
Hey kids, this is Mark Arm from Mudhoney.
I'm Kevin Martin from Candlebox.
Hi, I'm Dave Cruzen.
I'm Tim Montana.
Hey, I'm James Joseph from James and the Cold Gun.
I am Matt Vaughn from Easy Street Records.
This is Richard Stuberud. And this is the State of Love and Trust.
The State of Love and Trust.
The State of Love and Trust.
Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Feed the algorithm.
Welcome back to another episode of the State of Love and Trust. It's a Pearl Jam podcast, and I'm one of your two hosts, Jason Kerepesi, and alongside me, as always, is
Paul Ghiglieri.
Oh man, Paul, I am stoked. We are celebrating Pearl Jam at 35. How is this possible?
We got old.
It's that simple.
It's
that simple. I feel like just yesterday I was a young, spry young man marching my way to the concert venue in Hartford, Connecticut. But
the yonder times of yesteryear have long since passed.
Paul,
on with the future, we say.
We do record in 1080p, not 4K yet, because if it was 4K, you could really easily see the gray little hairs popping out across the hair on my face.
I look like this when the lights are off. So.
Paul showcasing, for our audio listeners, Paul showcasing another one of the Pearl Jam Halloween shirts. This is the mariachi band made of skeletons. Very Coco adjacent. Oh, Jacko, what is that? Is that Sam Adams? What is he got?
Mm-hmm.
Paul,
it is indeed.
What kind of pour would you say this is of wine?
That is what we call in the civilized world a generous pour.
Oh, yeah. I would have also accepted home pour. But yes, generous indeed. You know what? We got a very generous guest today.
Mm-hmm. Very excited.
That's how you segue.
Nicely done.
Thank you very much. Before we get to our fabulous guest and celebrating 35 years of Pearl Jam, gotta get to the housekeeping. If you are watching here on YouTube, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and if listening only, Paul.
Well, they should feed that algorithm with some cinnamon, some nutmeg, and some freshly baked pumpkin pie. No, don't do that. Feed it with your rates, your reviews, and your
subscriptions.
There it is. Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Effort on that one.
For some reason, while you were saying that, I was imagining some poor soul trying to stuff a piece of pumpkin pie into their phone. And that would have been, I don't think the Apple Care covers that.
No, I don't think it does.
If you feel like helping out people, as we tend to do, and we have this monthly fundraiser thing that we do, this month in October, it's the ARC. They are promoting and protecting the human rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and actively supporting their full inclusion and participation in the community throughout their lifetime. Scan that QR code that you just saw. And if you do send $5 or more, you know you're getting the stickers. You know you're getting the pins. Where's the guitar pick? Do you have the guitar pick on you, handy?
Let me look around. No, that's not one of them. That's not either. I don't know. Where did it go?
I don't know. Anyways, $5 or more gets that. The greatest donator. Oh my God, that was aggressive. Holy smokes. The greatest donator will get giveaway on vinyl. Here it is. This is exactly yours if you donate the most money to the ARC here in October. You have just days left at this juncture. So get those donations in. And if you want to support this show, there are links below for Patreon and the Pod Shop. All kinds of great stuff. Patreon member giveaway of the month. It's Bellingham, Washington on compact disc. And we'll throw in a wristband from Easy Street Records where I bought that thing. Okay, let's do it. We've got such a fun show. Oh, Paul, we are a week away now from Pearl Jam at 35, and we've had a great time online and with people that we care about, talking about the band. How has it been 35 years? This week, Paul, we welcome longtime superfan, journalist, editor, and 2feetthick.com co-founder Jessica Letkemann back to the show to talk about her mini book that details Pearl Jam's origin story. Oh, yes. It's called Music for Rhinos, and it was released 15 years ago around Pearl Jam 20. Well, Pearl Jam, like we said, now 35 years young, so why not relive it with the author herself, Jessica Letkemann, back on the show.
Hey, everybody. Great to be here. Thanks for having me back, guys. And it is wild that you're talking about feeling old, or we got old, or whatever it was, because I thought, like, oh my God, this band is 20 when I wrote this thing. Mm-hmm. Now it's been 15 years.
What happened?
I don't know. How is that possible? That, like, a million lifetimes. So here I am. This is one of my absolute favorite, obviously, Pearl Jam, like, stories, like the whole thing that I am the most well-versed in is how the crazy circumstances that came together to, like, make these people get in a room and play music. I still think it's, just wild that they actually, like, connected.
You know what? It's been, we had Pearl Jam 20, and that was wonderful, is wonderful. Thank you, Cameron Crowe, for that. This feels like, listen, they're doing all these biopics. We did the Bob Dylan. We're about to have the Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
So when is the Pearl Jam happening? Because this is incredible, 18 months or whatever.
I would vote for PJ40 for the biopic. You have to have, like, enough time for, like, the Hollywood development, all that stuff. Although I just can't imagine the guys, like, signing
off on
for that. No way. Absolutely not. Does that seem like them?
No, it does
not. Would we all go see it?
Oh my God. We can start the casting right now online. Who's your Eddie Vedder choice? Who's your Matt Cameron choice? And the comments will be, a dumpster fire, as they always are, but
right.
It'd be fun nonetheless.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, you could literally have the film just be everything leading up to Off Ramp. Right, and then as soon as they go on the stage, just cut to black and credits roll. I
would love that.
That'd be such a tease. And some people who don't know Pearl Jam would be like, "Okay, what happened? What happened? But, like, what happened next?" Anyways, so 15 years ago, you wrote this mini book, and you scoured the internet, and you listened to all kinds of audio, and you interviewed Eddie. Yeah.
So it's actually wasn't okay. I'm going to take you back.
These are your words. I'm quoting the first page of this thing.
Yeah, no, but it's actually more complicated because
talk to me.
I didn't write it 15 years ago. I was kind of writing.
Sorry, it was released 15 years ago. Pardon my French.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was like this document that I kept adding onto and piecing together over, like, I want to say at least 15 years. And, like, after I became a fan of the band, during the 10 era. Mm-hmm. And then, after a couple of years, went off to college during the Versus era. And that's when I started, like, just piecing together, like, I'm going to keep track of everything about this band. And, like, I quickly became, like, super, like, curious about how did these people get in a room. Like, there was so many coincidences, so many, like, near misses, that if this thing didn't happen, then that thing wouldn't happen. If a butterfly flapped its wings, and this thing wouldn't happen. So I was, like, constantly, like, adding on to that story, like, knitting it together over years and years and years. And you mentioned I've been an editor and a music journalist for a very long time. And so back in those days, I worked at Spin Magazine. And I was sort of, like, around, like, the cover stories of Pearl Jam for Spin, all three of them, actually. And, I was just, like, knitting together every little piece of things. And then eventually I was, sort of big girl enough to, like, interview Eddie and stuff like that. And he was very gracious and allowed me to ask these sort of questions that had nothing to do with maybe exactly what I was, interviewing him for. But he was, and he was super cool about it. I asked him about, why was it called Mama San? And, like, was that, like, the Clash and, like, stuff like that he confirmed that, like, to Spin, they didn't, like, they were like, that would never make it into the article. But, like, for me, it was like, oh, I got that final detail. So I was always knitting this stuff together. And then eventually, I became sort of like a fan that was, in the mix when we did, when I did a zine, and then I went off to 2 Feet Thick. And, there was interviews that I got to do with the guys as a fan. And that's a whole different story. So when it started approaching, the 20th anniversary of their first show, like PJ20 and stuff like that, they consider their anniversary like the anniversary of 10. Mm-hmm. But like as a fan, like I'm like, well, to me, the day they got together in a room, that's the moment that I consider their birthday. And so I was like, 2010 is the date that I always had in my mind. So riding up to that, weirdly, miraculously, I did an interview with Stone. And I kind of mentioned like, I'm kind of trying to knit this together for, the 20th anniversary of Off Ramp and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, you guys want to get on the phone a few times and you can pick my brain and I'll tell you about like the name of the taper guy who was at the Mother Love Bone show where we played Dollar Short. I was like, oh my God, you're going to I'm like, we're going to pick your brain of like the weirdest stuff.
Yes, please.
And they were just lovely. I mean, he was super lovely. They let me ask all these weird questions that were like so incredibly specific. Like, what were you doing on, September 2nd, 1990, like really like goofy questions. So the backstory of this whole thing is that it was many years in the making and then like a feverish like thing to deliver it at the finish line with, Stone helping me get it over the finish line a lot. He did like several interviews. Chris Cornell was in the mix from an earlier one. Mm-hmm. Like I had interviewed Matt Cameron along the way and some other people, and they always took out time to have like these fan questions answered, which I just really, really appreciated. And as we led up to it, it was like, I'm going to write this thing and it's going to be on the website as a PDF. But I also put it out as a print zine because, old school, it's an old school thing. So I actually had 200 copies printed and mailed it out to whoever wanted it. Those ran out pretty fast. I have a few around, but they ran out pretty fast.
So there's really just two questions that kind of jump out to me, and that is, and it might be a seemingly silly one, but why? Why even do this? Why even attempt this? And two, what were your goals heading into the project or even along the project? Did they change as you got more access with interviews and stuff like that?
Well, of course, it started with this whole idea that like, how did these people get together? Like obviously Stone and Jeff and even Mike to some extent, because they were like around, like they've known each other. Stone and Jeff have known each other since they were in middle school or something like that, or sixth grade, or I don't know.
Mike.
Right. And Mike too. I'm not Stone and Jeff, Mike and Stone. Let me get that right. I don't want to screw that up. And then as soon as Jeff came into town from Montana, he started knowing all those guys. So like it was a very tight knit like thing for a long time. So it's not that weird that they ended up in a band together, I guess, if you think about it that way. But like the Eddie faction is just like that. Without that ingredient, it's not Pearl Jam. You know what I mean? And so how did he happen to, become, the guy who had to meet Jack Irons? I have to go back in the depths of memory or something, but like the day that Eddie met Jack Irons was like a random November day, like a year before Pearl Jam existed. And he had to like go through some kind of weird machinations to get the night off of work so that he could like go be a roadie for free at a Joe Strummer show. Mm-hmm. Joe Strummer of The Clash, and Jack Irons was playing drums. And like, it was because he wanted to meet Jack Irons as well, who had been in the Chili Peppers. This is his first thing back after being out of the Chili Peppers. And like, that almost didn't happen. That's one of those things where it almost didn't happen. Like, well, he could have not gotten the night off. I think there might've been some weather involved. There was like, I don't know if I'm remembering this right. There was some kind of problem with the electricity at the show that night. And that was like why he had time to talk to Jack.
It was delayed. Yeah.
I'm like, well, if that one thing hadn't happened, then no Pearl Jam. So there's 27 things along the way. If that hadn't happened, no Pearl Jam.
What about the bananas?
Right.
Right?
I mean,
the love of bananas.
Right. That's a very small detail. But yeah, it changed along the way because like, like when you're paying attention to one specific thing about a band, like for years and years and years, of course, I love all the music. I've been to a million shows, all that stuff. But when you like keep like threading this, like knitting this story where you're like gathering every little piece of this one part of the story, you end up with really weird little artifacts that kind of along the way, I don't even remember when it was, maybe 10 years before this came together completely, I became kind of aware that the first week, this idea of the first week wasn't really just 1 week. And I was like, I just want to tell people, like, how do I tell people?
So the journalist in you came out and was like, I have to be the one to do this. That's the why.
I just didn't like, well, I just felt like, the band, the details get foggy. I mean, you're in a whirlwind, you know what I'm saying? And so I felt like it would get lost if nobody was sitting there like saying like, this important thing that happened, like how did all the molecules like collide exactly right? And like, cause there's like, 27 sides to every story, but the facts are the facts. Like, oh, it happened in 7 days. Well, it happened over 2 weeks. And Eddie went back and he came back and, a million things. And hey, he had to be a roadie for James Taylor during that, in the middle of that. So he had to go back to San Diego and whatever it was, cause he was, like working in San Diego and couldn't get out of it. So I just wanted to be the record taker, I guess. I mean, like when I interviewed Chris Cornell, which was many years before this came together, he said something that like, I almost want to like, if I ever, like do a bigger project or something, I want it to be like how you have like a little quote at the beginning. And it was, I'm a witness and I have a good memory, and I was just like, that just really stuck with me. I just wanted there to be a record of exactly how it happened.
Now, a detail that I have not heard much about from Andy Wood's public memorial at the Paramount was Andy's father urging the rest of the guys in Mother Love Bone to just carry on, continue to make music, become successful, get a singer who's not a junkie. Do you remember like who told you that? Maybe what your first impression of that was?
This could be wrong because I haven't like reviewed every source like lately, I guess.
Come on, Jessica.
I know. I mean, oh my God. It's like, let me look at, but what I recall is like, in the early days of Pearl Jam, there was like 1 million people who got to interview them, like, and everybody had put little weird details. And I was obsessive in those early years of like, I'm going to get every time these people have ever been interviewed and mention the first thing. And what I remember was like, I think Rip Magazine or somebody happened to like write about this. And I hope I'm not wrong. I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but I feel like somebody mentioned that in an interview with, it may have even been with Mudhoney or somebody else who was like in the scene or there was an interview that wasn't necessarily a Pearl Jam interview that somebody just happened to mention that.
I think you mentioned Mark Arm earlier in the thing about that night. So maybe it was Mark.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. That there was an interview later where a member of Mudhoney like sort of gave that interview literally in 1990, like literally like a long time ago.
Wild.
So that's how I remember that detail. You're like quizzing me now on like the minutia, right?
Well, I guess it's not so much the
time
minutia.
Did Eddie Land?
No, it's more like what was your impression of that though? Like this moment where they lost their singer and the father of Andy Wood is looking at them saying like carry on, and they do find a singer and they do carry on and they find one who's not struggling with the same kind of addiction, and the rest is history. So it's almost like a premonition.
Right. I mean, I thought that was powerful though, because, like I thought that was like a beautiful thing. Like it made perfect sense to me, because if your kid, that your beloved son, who had always been obsessed with music, I'm talking about Andy Wood, who had just been singing into hairbrushes since like he could probably talk or whatever. He was like a born showman, if he passes away tragically, and like the dad is just like, I hope his band gets famous, like I just hope that wherever he is looking down from Mount Olympus or whatever, like Jeff and Stone made it, like they did the thing. They get to say, like, hello, Cleveland, or whatever that, what that Andy Wood would have loved, in his Freddie Mercury, fever dream.
Speaking of Andy, I didn't realize it, or maybe I just didn't remember. You mentioned it a moment ago, Stone talking about the original live demo, Dollar Short, being actually a Mother Love Bone kind of demo, and it being played with Andy and Andy's lyrics in Portland. So I don't know why I didn't know that or didn't remember it, but how hard did you try to find this fan is what I want to know.
Oh my God. Oh,
like,
I mean,
super hard. Like,
and it was funny because like that was one of those interviews that was like right before this all came together, where Stone was just like spilling all these super random. He's like, I don't remember the order of anything, but like I'm gonna just like he was just saying all these random little things.
he story vomited on you,
right?
Like, thank you.
Absolutely. Like, tell me every little weird detail. Like, Dollar Short, that was a Mother Love Bone song? Yes or no? He's like, let me tell you, we played it one time. We played it in Portland. There was a taper guy who was always there, and his name was like, you know, whatever. And it wasn't like a real name. It was like Taper Dan or something like that. And
Oh
it was
my
like,
God.
It was. And
Wait,
by
did you go then on the community boards and be like, okay, is anybody user's name Taper Dan or whatever?
Yeah, but like the problem with that is that like you get like pooped on immediately, right? Like when you like, I'm trying to find out a thing and blah blah blah. Like, you know, you can't you can't do it that way. But like one of the 2 Feet Thick members is John Reynolds. You know, he had been in Digijam and stuff like that. He was like super plugged into the Pearl Jam taper community, and he sent out feelers like crazy. Kathy Davis, the other 2 Feet Thick member, you know, who had done Footsteps forever. She had just been like part of the fan community for 100,000 years, and she had put out feelers. Of course, I knew people as well, and I also knew like a lot of like journalists who were privately tapers. and we just tried. We knew a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest. We knew like weird people. Like, oh, this is the weirdest one. Pearl Jam played opening for like Cherry Poppin' Daddies. Think of a band name like that at some time during this period. And I think they played in Portland in the very early days. And I like reached out to like some member of that band to say like, do you know who might have been taping the early Mookie Blaylock shows? Because I'm trying to find somebody who would have taped, you know, like a Mother Love Bone show that had, you know, like a prototype of Alive. And they were just like, no, man, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Well,
I have no, you know, who would know is Pearl Jam's archivist, but like I couldn't interview him. We should ask him.
Kevin, if you're watching, listening, or if Taper Dan or whatever his name is, or her name, if you're listening or watching, is he? If you're watching, sir, please get in touch with any one of us and make everyone's lives that much better. Please.
It would be amazing. It would be.
Now, some of the level of detail that you have in this story is incredible. I mean, like there's specific times of day, Eddie getting, like you mentioned, getting off his shift at 8 a.m., 1989 Toyota pickup. Did Ed tell you these details directly? And if not, like, where did you get them?
So like, I feel like a lot of like my method, and which is my method in sort of everything that I do, is like this idea of triangulation, right? Like if you talk to anybody, like they remember this and that thing about an event. And like there's things that you wouldn't be able to figure out a date, right? Like there's no way or whatever. But sometimes like somebody will say like, oh, you know, I remember it was, you know, like a Monday night and it was raining and it was in early October. So then you go and look up the newspaper for that place and you say, what Monday night was it raining? So like there's a lot of, you know, things going.
Look at you cross-referencing.
There was a lot of that going on. So like I remember, you know, I think it was Stone who told me like, oh, you know, Mike he got off work at a certain time and had to go get Eddie like immediately. So I was like, well, then we know what time he landed at SeaTac, you know.
Look up flight records.
Not quite, but like you can, you can like you sit there and Google like how long did it take to get from, you know, like
how much easier would it have been to do this now if the band was coming of age now? Oh my God, easy cakewalk.
I mean, yeah. Well, like if Pearl Jam had formed like 5 years ago or something like that, like they would have like had a vlog, like a you know, like a TikTok about it or something.
Jessica's Tumblr page.
Right. Well, but like it was a lot of triangulation. It was a lot of like one person remembering like one detail of it and another person remembering another detail of it. Somebody randomly having like a Polaroid of a thing with like a date scribbled on it, or you know, like the 2009 box set finally had like a picture of Mama Son with 913 on it, and that helped date things. Somebody mentioned like, oh, I went home after I recorded the thing.
Have you thought of a career in forensics?
Forensic journalism.
Just saying.
NCIS Pearl Jam.
Exactly.
Right. No, well, thank you. Yeah, like it's a lot of like people mentioning little weird details and me like plugging it in. Right. You know what I mean? like plugging it into like, oh, that was around the corner from this place, or oh, that was he was right outside when so and so was working in this other place, or like
Google Maps, Street View. There it is. There's the sidewalk where Mother Love Bone was etched. I can see it.
Right, and it was like right outside of like where Mike McCready was working.
Yeah.
Or I think it was Chris Cornell who told me that he auditioned for Shadow, which blew my mind.
No, he did not. Really?
I don't even know if that's in there. Was it? It was either. It
wasn't in there.
Oh yeah, this is not about the origin story.
That Chris Cornell auditions for anything and doesn't get it is just unfathomable.
He wasn't Chris Cornell yet. No, he was. I mean, I think it was either Chris himself or one of the Friel brothers, because Rick Friel from who's from those bands. It was like he's just like a super lovely person who remembers a lot of things, and I've interviewed him a few times, and he's just loves to talk about those early days. He's such a big supporter of Mike's career. He just loves to see them win. And so when I was asking him anything about that stuff, he's like, yeah, let me tell you this. It was one of them. I can't remember who told me at first, because I would have asked the other one after that. Like, oh my God, what? And it was like, he didn't fit in with their scene. They were like playing like skating rinks where like they would have bands set up on one end of the skating rink and then the other end of the skating rink. And they would have people skate down to one end and watch that show. This is Shadow. And then have to, the next band was setting up and they'd skate down to the other end and watch that. And we'd be like, like that's like, 13-year-old, like tween stuff,
Not exactly.
I was like, a little bit older, a little bit more moody, a little bit, more brooding. And it was just like, what? But that blew my mind.
Speaking of Chris, I never knew that Chris wrote lyrics to "Breath in a Scream" demo, and that Stone was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna keep that." Like, I need to know where these lyrics are. Did you press Stone on this at all?
I did, but like the memory fails. Even when we're that was 15 less years ago. But like he can remember what he can remember. I think he was like on a boat on Labor Day when we were having that conversation, and I was like, why? I was shocked that he would even talk to us.
Were you on the phone with him?
Yeah, we were on the phone. All three of us.
And he was calling you from a boat on Labor Day.
Yeah, it was weird because like after like I broached the topic like randomly because I was talking to him about Brad or something. I was like, can I ask you some like Pearl Jam origin stuff? Because I'm working on some 2 Feet Thick stuff. And he's like, yeah, totally. And then we got talking and he was like, if you set it up, I'll talk to you a couple more times if you want, like you can pick my brain. And one of the times was on Labor Day of that year. It was just so like, he's just like, well, this is the time I have. This is when, everybody's like, I have time. So like, he was like in the middle of some kind of relaxing vacation moment, but there was a lot going on in the background. I don't know. It was hard to press him on certain things. And then you sort of don't get somebody on the phone again until after. I think I made sure this was out on October 22nd, 2010.
So speaking of being on the phone, I think a lot of fans either don't know or forgot that Ed met Stone and Jeff in between the demo getting the letter and Ed flying up to Seattle after that conversation. So how did you uncover that Seattle radio interview from 91 that clarified that? Like, we have this myth built on our heads that Ed just hopped on a plane, like right after Stone and Jeff heard that tape.
So it's weird and it's a little bit murky, but like what's interesting to me is, so he sends off the tape, but then like those guys were at like Hard Rock, like convention or something in LA, and they gave interviews in like the Rocket in Seattle. Which was like the local alternative weekly. And they were like, oh yeah, we're like looking for a singer and we like heard a guy or whatever. I think like there's just like weird local stuff that I was able to get my hands on. I like actually like wrote to the editor and said like, do you have back copies or something? That's how I used to like uncover like old shows and stuff like that. I have like the listings of the thing of the shows and stuff like that. So there's like, that's part of it, like it's like weird local like articles that like I'm like I'll send you a money order in the mail. It's super weird. Get like a package.
How much of this were you doing kind of shortly thereafter, like in the early 90s, and how much of it did you kind of not get to until later as you started to piece. I want to put this thing together as a thing for Pearl Jam 20 because that's a big going back. 17 years to find something versus one is different.
Okay, so there was also a zine called Backlash, which was like a pretty big, not even a zine, it was like a local like alternative weekly thing. And then there was the Rocket, and then there was like a couple other things. And like I didn't get like that far down the rabbit hole until, I don't know, like a year or two before, probably a couple years before this. I think what really kicked off the like deep dive into it is I interviewed Steve Turner from Mudhoney around 2000 or something like that, and he just knew so much stuff. He was just like, yeah, let me tell you what it was like when when they brought when they announced that show and what we all thought, and we were like trying to be wary of like, oh no, here's this guy from LA and then you show up and you meet Eddie, and he's just like a cool guy. He's just really fun, and you can't be mad that like it's some guy from like LA. You know what I mean? I'm like, so like that's all just to say, like, after that show, and I hope like it's not weird that I'm telling you all this stuff, but I was just like, I'm really interested in all that stuff because I was asking him about Green River stuff and how he had to like convince Jeff to be in his band and all this other stuff in Green River. And he's like, oh, I have a bunch of flyers and stuff like that. Would you want to see it? And I'm like, here is my address. Like, do you want me to send you some postage? Like, do I need to drive to Seattle? Like, whatever. So like, he sent me like a package of like early like Green River flyers and stuff like that. And so then I was like, I need to know all the stuff that you like. Were you at that first show? Like, can you tell me like all these details? He's just like, well, you got to talk to Jack Endino. And now Jack Endino is,
Did you talk to him?
Oh yeah. I mean, oh yeah. Like, because it turned out like around the time that I was like in those, in the O's, when I was like going down this rabbit hole, like that was like the moment when nobody was like really thinking that hard about like stuff that happened in the 90s.
Point.
It's just like, you're not like, oh, the guy from Skin Yard. I mean, like, yes, he has like obviously producing credits that like blow people's mind, but I don't know that people were thinking like, about grunge. I use that word loosely.
It was long gone from people's frontal lobes at that point. Like, so
it was not on anybody's mind in 2007 or whatever, or 2005 or any of those years.
How cool is it that so many people were just like, yeah, I'm happy to talk about all this stuff. Like, all these people.
I think that they all were really interested in talking about like, it wasn't those big questions that like you usually read in the press where it's just like, oh, what'd you think when you heard 10, or, like, tell me about how it felt to sell 1 million records or to watch your, some band that you helped come up, whatever, depending on who the person was. These were like minutia questions about when they were a tight knit community, and everybody seemed to key in on the community part of it. Like, oh yeah, like we all wanted to see those guys win. They were right on the edge of it. And then it looked like it was going to not happen because Andy Wood like fell out of the picture at like right before the album came out, and how could they possibly pick up the pieces? That, yeah. And then like, oh my God, here comes Pearl Jam. So it's incredible. They all love talking about the community. So when I was like digging into this stuff, somebody said to me like, oh, you got to get your hands on this and that. And Jack Endino, the producer, happened to be the only person who like, he would like have these like online garage sales or something like that. And he was like that, no, like on like a message board or something. And I just like, can I order your like stuff? He's like, oh, you want to know all about this stuff? I'm like, he's like, here's everything. Well, let me tell you about Reciprocal. Let me tell you about, the Snow Gosford demos. Like he was just like, I don't know. He was also drumming for Wellwater Conspiracy, which is like Matt Cameron's side project. And like they played in New York, and I went to all those shows. I'm like, a chance to meet Jack Endino, I'll take it. Absolutely. I just went to every geeky side project. I mean, I went to Wellwater shows, and I went to
Jess,
Brad.
you put in the work. You sure did work.
Yeah, but it's not the work, right? Like, we're sitting here on a podcast talking about the minutia.
That's our work. We just sit here. That's it.
No, but we're talking about the minutia of something that happened 35 and plus years ago.
But to curate it, like, what do they say? Like, it's not work if you love it or something. If it's your passion, it's not going to feel like work. Of course, this isn't going to feel like work. We want to do this. People ask me, why do you guys do this show and do so much of it and spend so much time like editing it and researching it? And I'm like, because this is fun. I like this stuff.
I just wanted to know. I just wanted to know. I just wanted to know how did you get there, Eddie? Like what time did Alive get written? I want to know. I want when did you put the
8:37? I got out of the water. Got the. Yeah.
Like where did you go surfing? Like where was the surfing happening where the live happened?
Yeah. And
he just mentioned it by the by in some random like radio interview. Like, oh yeah, I was down at PB, whatever. And I was like, what PB? What the hell was that? And I had you couldn't, ask AI or something. I was like, PB, what the?
You got your Rand McNally map, and you turned to F4 and the thing. Oh, there it is.
I was like, what is PB in the? He lived in San Diego. Where? Pacific Beach.
Yeah.
I salute you, Pacific Beach. Thank you for Pearl Jam. That's just another one of those things. And also there's another little weird thing is like, so he, got the tape and he like immediately was inspired and wrote half a 10 overnight or whatever happened. And, or in the next day or so. And then he sent off that tape. He like put it in the mail, which we all know, like, that could have not got there, and they could have just been like, well, whatever about that guy, or they didn't even really know it was coming, or I don't know. I don't know if they were expecting it or not, or I don't remember. And like literally, I don't remember if it was the same day after mailing it or the next day or something. Like the current issue of Rolling Stone came out, which he had a subscription to, or he definitely read all the time or whatever. And there was like a little blurb in it about they had interviewed, Stone and Jeff. Because about the Mother Love Bone stuff and like what are they going to do next, and they were just like, we're looking for a singer right now
from the rock symposium thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so like it was in like there was this little tiny blurb, of course, that I sent away for somewhere to see what they said, right. And they were just like, we're trying to figure out a singer to like carry on or whatever. And Eddie said like if I had known that I was singing for people who were in Rolling Stone, I would have tried to make it more like, fun or like, like about a Saturday night or something like that. I wouldn't have, I don't think, he's like, I wouldn't have written it live. I don't know. I wouldn't have sent them that. I don't think that would have been the vibe. So like, that's another thing. If that magazine had come out in a different sequence of things, it wouldn't have been for him.
Well, I don't have any questions about what a Rolling Stone is, but I can tell you that when my daughter was about 7 or 8 years old, I wanted to get her a Pearl Jam shirt. So I go onto the website and go to Pearl Jam shop. And the only kid shirt they had at the time featured a rhino. It said Music for Rhinos. I bought the shirt, give her the shirt. She's like, awesome. Does this mean we're going to the zoo? I'm like, no, baby, it's a Pearl Jam shirt. She goes, why does it say Music for Rhinos? So tell the good people what this is referencing.
Well, there's a very early Christmas single. And I figured that I would name it after like an obscure reference on a Christmas single. This is kind of going back to when I was a young teenager, I was a pretty big Beatles fan and stuff like that. And they had all these crazy Christmas singles where they would like just talk and riff and stuff like that. And I feel like Pearl Jam picked up that mantle in those early Christmas singles because they always had ramblings, right? And it was always like, whatever. So on one of those really early ones, it has a picture of a rhinoceros on the front and like little handwriting that says Music for Rhinos on it. And during the ramblings, they say like, I'm a rhinoceros and my skin is 2 feet thick. So I was like,
that isn't a sign.
But I also like Music for Rhinos as like a concept of Pearl Jam. It's like for people who have like it's people who have survived. I don't know. Like you're
saying we're an endangered species? Is that what?
Well, Pearl Jam is a special case, and I like. This is weird. This is a weird thing to say out loud, but a few years ago, 8 years ago, I had the great honor of writing the liner notes for the reissue of the vinyl, the box set of the first 10 Pearl Jam albums.
Really?
And yes. And that was a very big honor. And I wrote this whole long essay about how Pearl Jam is a band about surviving, about being the ones who make it. Who like live, the people who lived, rather than like wallowing in, all the trials and tribulations of life, this is a band that has shown over and over and over again that they're the ones who, with a survival mindset and potentially even a thriving mindset. And so like the music for Rhinos, this idea is just something that has always been in the back of my mind. And that idea that Pearl Jam is the band that the band that lived, you know, to use a Harry Potter reference, the band that lived is that's what's kind of behind the music for Rhinos thing.
Well, I want to quickly kind of bounce through some tentpole moments from these 35 years. I don't want to go on forever, but like let's try and keep it sort of lightning round adjacent and say what we think 5 things are that kind of just, it could be a concert, it could be a moment, it could be whatever. Jessica, start us off with one tentpole moment. And by the way, if either of us also have that on our list, let's just chime in and knock that off the box.
Do you want to go in chronological order? Or you want to go in any kind of order?
Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
I'm going to go in chronological order because it makes sense.
Let's do it.
The big obvious one to me is the audition. The audition where Eddie like rolls straight in from SeaTac and goes up to the mic and like he opens his mouth and then Pearl Jam exists. This moment is in early October and it is so momentous to me because there's so many weird things about it. First of all, the night before, when Eddie was still back in LA, he went to go see I think it was Gathering of the Tribes, and it was like a kind of like a Lollapalooza kind of thing in LA, and it was put on by the Cult, and Soundgarden was on the bill, so he was in the pit watching like Soundgarden one day, and then he was sitting outside of a Temple of the Dog rehearsal waiting for his chance to audition to be the singer of Mookie Blaylock the next day. And that always blows my mind. You know, that's the moment like Chris Cornell meets him. That's the moment that like all these things come together and like he comes in there and he's just this guy and he opens his mouth and sings Alive. And that's the first song that they sing. I mean, they're all sitting there thinking like, okay, I mean, obviously, yes, you were hired. But I can't believe that all happened in like, you know, one day.
I don't know if you consider it a separate thing, but I think it's a part of what you just said, and I would say the Off-Ramp show is kind of the culmination of that first mini chapter of the tape is made. He goes, that happens. The 2 weeks happen with him going back for James Taylor, and then the show, and it's like, oh, okay, here we go. So for me, the Off-Ramp show is kind of like the tip of the pyramid of that little mini section that you just spoke about. I don't know what you think, Paul.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's definitely on the list. You know, that first show kind of solidified what I think the band has always been about, which was just kind of a reason to play live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they continue to make records to give them the opportunity to do that. So,
all right, tentpole moment number 2. Jessica, what do you think?
Well, 1994, picture it. A wild and crazy year. Many things happened in 1994 in relation to the like music industry and as particularly music from Seattle. Obviously, we know that Kurt Cobain was no longer. But the moment I want to focus on is that this is the moment that Pearl Jam chooses to fight for their ticket prices and like testify before Congress and things like that, which is like a wild move for like, you know, arguably the largest band in the universe at that exact moment, considering that, you know, the demise of another band. This band with the most power in the music industry is saying like, yeah, wait a minute. We don't want to charge an arm and a leg. We don't want to see our fans like paying $1 bazillion. And we are going to put our tours on hold like indefinitely in order to achieve this. And they were still coming off that, like they're less than a year out from Versus at this time. And, you know, this had repercussions through No Code, through, you know, through until Yield. Until Yield, like there was repercussions of this moment when they stood up and said, you know, we're sponsored by no one and we don't want to hike up our prices.
Yeah, no, that wasn't on my list, but it's a great. I mean, of course, we can have like 20 of these things, but I actually have two that are before that chronologically. I'll say one of them now, and that is MTV Unplugged. I think mainstream America and like the general world music scene, this is the first real impression that a lot of people had, and holy crap, what a statement to make acoustically. You get a taste of what this band can offer you, and it's without being distorted with gain and on the stage and running around. I mean, they kind of run around a little bit, but like, holy mother of God, there was that. If you didn't know, if you're just flicking on TV, you're like a 15-year-old kid and you go, what the hell is this? And those kudos to everybody at MTV who took a chance on some random ass band, you know, and they booked, was it Mariah Carey and Dr. Dre, or Mariah Carey and Boyz II Men were also, because if we're gonna book them, we're gonna get our money's worth with known quantities that same day at the Astoria soundstage. But I think that for me was, holy shit, a monster tentpole moment. Paul, was that on your list, or do you have something else around that time?
I've got some other ones. I think the first one is probably when Jeff almost quit the band. I think, you know, and the second one is kind of a piggyback off of that. But for me, you know, you had the Ticketmaster battle, the touring strain, but it was really just that no code era of you know, just five. You know, Brendan O'Brien said, you know, during the making of Vitology that they were barely communicating. You know, five guys in a band who didn't really want to be in a band anymore. And Jeff had said that the experience at that time just really wasn't any fun. And you saw this transition of Stone kind of handing over the reins, really, of songwriting and leadership mantle to Eddie Vedder. And I just always thought it was just a pivotal moment, because in the same way that Pearl Jam wouldn't be Pearl Jam without Eddie Vedder, I think on the same token, I can't imagine them with a different bassist either. Jeff is such an intrinsic part of who they have. I mean, he's just part of the DNA of the band from the very beginning. And so, you know, that moment of just kind of like feeling like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, and then making the decision to stay and to work with Jack and kind of find resolution and figure out a way to start communicating again and finding a joy in playing together again and orchestrating just great music, but more importantly, just finding a new dynamic in terms of how to compose and write music and share ideas with each other. I thought that was an important tentpole in the moment, and I should say in the timeline of the band. And speaking of Jack, because we've talked about him a lot tonight, the moment where Jack did quit the band. So we have Jeff not quitting, we have Jack actually quitting. Wow. And you know, I think that moment of just feeling fatigued and thinking about the effects of touring with the Chili Peppers and just being exhausted and you know, battling demons and things like that, just wanting to be home with family, and saying to the band, I just can't do this anymore. And saying, I mean, the word he used was machine. You know, I can't be part of the machine anymore. And it's, I think, no coincidence that they subsequently went out and found a machine to fill in. And for 25 plus years after that, you know, Matt Cameron, the longest tenured drummer in Pearl Jam history, is who came and took that seat. And so I think that's an important moment as well, I would argue, as a tentpole moment.
Big thing on the Jeff comment, and I love that, because think of other rock bands out there, and if their bassist left for whatever reason, how many would find somebody to just come in after a certain amount of time and carry on? Probably most.
Metallica is a great example, right?
Yeah, I mean, few bands bigger in the history of rock and roll than Metallica did it twice. Yeah. And I don't know that you could really do that with Jeff because of how much his thumb is on the scale. Everyone wants to talk about Eddie being the guy always in the driver's seat, and that's mostly right. But at the same time, Jeff has the brake. It's like when you're learning how to drive and the instructor's in the passenger seat, but he also has a set of brakes. That's kind of how Jeff was in my mind with this band. And so if you lost him,
but he's also the visual representation of the band.
Absolutely.
So much of the artwork and the visual direction of the band is really, you know, he's so a driver in that respect.
But you also have to respect the marriage of Stone and Jeff. If there's no Stone and Jeff, like it's different than almost every other band because at the core of it is Stone and Jeff. They decided in 1984 that they were just going to be in a band together. And if there's not Stone and Jeff, then it's not the band. I just feel that way. And also after Andy Wood passed away and like, you know, it was Stone who was just like, oh, we got to, like, I don't know, like Stone just like, I'll write some songs, whatever. And then Mike came in and was like, we can't do this without Jeff. Yeah. It can't be done without Jeff. Like, you got to convince him. Like, they rode their bikes around and were like, come on, you got to join the band. Come back. Come hang out and like, like play these demos. We can't do it without Jeff. So that's interesting. And then the Matt Cameron one, that was the next one on my list, kind of from a different angle and it's interesting that you weave in the Jack Irons and the Matt Cameron. Those are the two people without whom there would not be like Pearl Jam as we know today, because we know that Matt Cameron was playing on those Stone Gossard demos. P.S. And then it's Jack Irons who makes sure that Eddie Vedder gets in the picture. And then it's Jack Irons who makes sure that the band doesn't implode after losing Dave Aberzees in 1994. Like, who could possibly step in? Oh, right. The guy who handed Eddie the tape. Great. He was in the Chili Peppers. Nobody can argue with that resume. But then when he has to tap out because he had to go take care of himself, I was just like, this is impossible. This is another Pearl Jam, like that lyric in All or None, like another impossible situation. Like, I can't, I'm going to misquote the lyric, but it's just like, what are we trying to achieve here? And then like, oh my God, that press release, I remember it's like, picture it, April 1998. And Jack Irons is out and we're just like kind of left hanging for a minute. And then we get a press release and it said, Matt Cameron is going to be drumming on the tour. And I was just like, we have won the lottery.
We're good. We're good. It's like when your team wins the lottery for the first overall draft pick. You're like, oh, the franchise is saved. And like, how serendipitous is it in an unfortunate way that Soundgarden just dissolves at the right, in quotes, right time for him to be available for that.
Well, it was a year before that, like I feel like
I know, but like he was still there. Like, what if Soundgarden kept on crushing along?
That's true.
What happens?
And also, the Matt Cameron thing was like so amazing to me too, because that moment, that's like why I put this as like such a pivotal like tentpole moment. Matt Cameron joining the band in this like clutch moment is because it was the first time they had played like one of those giant like full-fledged cross-country like state like arena and amphitheater tours in years and years. Like, this is the first time since 1993 that they were playing like everywhere. And like Pearl Jam in 1993 and Pearl Jam in 1998, totally two separate things.
Right.
We had like a lot of us had just been like chomping at the bit and like calling 800 numbers to get tickets for, like standing in fields and stuff like that for years. And finally they were going to play the Garden and like, all these places, iconic places. And then, oh my God, we got Matt Cameron behind the kit too. Like, we are going to be on a jet plane and we are going to soar into the stratosphere. Sorry, I get very excited about that tour. I was like,
I love it.
Hey, I saw so many shows.
Hey, listen, I hear you. That was my first tour, and it was special. I am going to go backwards just once more. Actually, no, I will be twice more, but once more now, and that is the singles party. And Paul and I spoke about this very, very early on in the podcast, like episode 8 or something like that. I forget how early it was, but that was, and Stone said this in Pearl Jam 20, this was the birth of No. And the band had enough of just saying yes to everything. They needed to control their destiny. They need to control, for self-preservation. They need to find their limits and their own guardrails that they would determine where those would be. And this was that moment. And if they don't have that, they don't have anything afterwards, because they would have fizzled. They might have gotten to verses at that point.
Well, they just would have been swallowed by the chaos.
Absolutely. So I find that to be such a massive pivotal moment. I know it's early. It kind of flows under the radar. If you listen to the bootleg, the audience recording of the next night, which is one of the last nights of Lollapalooza in Irvine, you can hear him complaining about that. Funnily enough, I think it was before Even Flow, if memory serves. But so go listen to that if you have the boot. But yeah, I think the Singles Party was a massive, massive tentpole. We are on our fourth here. Jessica, what's your fourth?
So the obvious one would be to talk about Roskilde, right? But I want to talk about a moment like a couple minutes after Roskilde, which is the first show that they played after Roskilde, which was the Virginia Beach show of that year in August. And I think that we held our breath through. So Roskilde happens at the very end of June 2000, as we all know, and 9 fans are lost. And I mean, that was a very hard, strange period for obviously for the band, but also for the fans. Like, I don't think I would have blamed them if they broke up at that point. And I think that we all kind of thought in our mind, like, this may be happening. Like, we may be just the next thing we hear from Pearl Jam may be like that's it. Right. Because how do you come back from something like that? And then we find out that like they're going to play the rest of they're going to go on the tour. And so when they got to Virginia Beach, like everybody was holding their breath. And I wasn't there that night, but like many people called me on their cell phones to like, especially when they did the daughter tag, you know, and like butterflies were flying through the stage. And there was just all those like sort of mystical, spiritual moments. And that was the first moment that I felt like, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. Everybody's going to get through this. Pearl Jam survives. Pearl Jam lives. We're not going to ever forget what happened, of course, and we think about it every year. But Pearl Jam as an entity is going to continue. And that was so huge to me and huge to, you know, why we're still sitting here talking about this in 2025.
Yeah.
Paul, you got anything Roskilde related as one of yours?
I mean, that was on my list for all the reasons that Jessica just enumerated there. So I don't want to over elaborate on it, but I mean, just that idea that here's this band and they started questioning whether or not they should continue doing this. You know, I mean, like people actually died in the process of it, and kind of it's an existential moment, really, is what it was in the history of the band. And my fifth one is actually, I don't know if I would call it an existential moment, but I think he borders on one in the sense that when they made the decision to go with Andrew Watt for Dark Matter, I think that was a big moment in the band's career as well. And I know it's still fresh, but I don't think this record sounds like anything that we had heard before. It's not, you know, recycled sounds and dynamics. It is a completely different beast. And, you know, Stone jokes and calls him the Kid, but I don't remember any other producer jumping on stage. And I mean, like what we saw at Ohana, I mean, he was basically trying to fill Mike McCready's shoes for that entire set of Eddie's. And the Kid can shred. I mean, that guy can shred. And there's just something about what he was able to pull out of this band. It's almost like it was like a new lease on life. It was so interesting to me. And then suddenly they're being talked about as a potential Grammy Award winner again. And, you know, they're back at the forefront of the music scene. And now they're the elder statesman.
Since 98.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just, and obviously that those aren't necessarily things that they're striving for per se, but I mean, I think that it would be, I would be remiss to not acknowledge the fact that this tour and so much of what's been going on just feels bigger than the last couple, quite frankly. And obviously, Gigaton was negatively and adversely affected by COVID, but even going back before that, you know, with Backspacer, I mean, there's just something about where Pearl Jam's at right now that just feels elevated from where they had been over the last even 10 or 15 years. And I don't think he had a small hand to do with that. I think he, in no small part, I mean, was Andrew Watt just such an integral piece of this puzzle moving forward.
We should throw out a happy birthday to Andrew Watt. He was born, I think, within a couple days of Pearl Jam.
The day before. The 21st of October.
So wild to me.
Yeah.
That's there you go. Tying it together again.
Perfect.
That guy is unimpeachable. I just have to tell a quick Andrew Watt story
Please.
if I can.
Yeah.
So obviously I've been a fan and a journalist for a very, very long time. And when PJ20 happened, the band was really cool and they let me interview all the like side stage, like the second stage people for both my day job at Billboard and for 2 Feet Thick. So it was like, like Joseph Arthur and David Garza and, the band, John Doe from the band X, and like all these people that they had, like amazing people. And I got to talk to all of them, whatever. And there was a kid, a teenager hanging out. I guess he was still a teenager, hanging out outside of the media area that you had to have a credential get into. And he was like waiting to like say something to me. And I thought that was very strange. And I was just like, he's like, you do 2 feet thick and whatever. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm a guitarist and my name is Andrew. And would you mind like trying to like, would you listen to my like CD? He like had burned a CD of, like the band or his stuff. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, I'm a New Yorker and you're a New Yorker. And I just, Pearl Jam's my favorite band. Would you listen to this? And I like said, sure. And so for whatever reason, I was like, well, I got to listen to this kid's stuff, whatever. So I went off and listened to it. And he was playing a show. The CMJ festival was like around New York, like every little venue would like have bands, every year. It was like a convention. And like his band was playing at Mercury Lounge or something, which is like a very small club.
Love Mercury Lounge. Yeah.
And I said like, I listened to it and I was like, this is a person who loves Pearl Jam. That's what I thought. I was like, this person like wants all the rock glory. I just thought he was really talented. And so I said, I'm going to go to his show, whatever. So I went to his show and he like played a live as his encore because he saw me in the crowd. And I think I wrote about it like in my like wrap up of CMJ on Billboard. Cause I was like, this is the one little thing I can do. I can throw a little, like a little mention of, like a little blurb of this random person who doesn't have a record deal, I don't even think he had like a solid band. It was just him. And for whatever reason, he just never forgot that. He was just always nice to me after that. Like I ran into him in random Pearl Jam related places. Just like, remember that time? Like you gave me a big up. And like, every time I would see him, he was like doing something bigger and bigger. He was like, doing something like
biggest record producers in the industry.
Correct. I know, but like, like 10, 15 years ago, he was like, oh, I'm, in a band with, a guy from, like a major, 70s band. I'm like, oh, that guy, or I'm friends with such and such pop star, or I'm backstage at like a random concert that they're covering. He's like, oh, I'm working, and like, it just would build and build. And I just love watching him climb. And then eventually when it came to producing a Pearl Jam record, and I said, oh my God, that guy did it.
Right.
That kid,
circle,
he handed me the CD, and the funny thing is I don't know him very well or whatever anymore, but like he dug out my number because I've had the same cell phone number since 1999. And he texted me like, what do you think of the record? Like after it came out. And I was just like, Andrew,
how rad is that?
Andrew? And he's just like, oh man, like, what do you think? Like, did I do a good job? And I was just like, you knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, you killed it.
I was thrilled that he like, I don't know. He's just a real one,
That's one of the coolest stories I've ever heard. That is awesome. Oh man, Andrew Watt, fantastic. I love it. I don't know how you come back from that because that was a fantastic story.
That was my number 5. So I'm
sorry it was so long. I'm sorry it was so long.
It's great.
I'm going to go backwards real quick because I gotta hit my 4th one, which is Soldier Field in '95, and I think I like that moment because I think after all of the drama that we had with the Dave and Jack thing and the direction of the band and the lifeline that Jack offered or provided in needing some stabilization, and then the band recording with Neil Young.
Yeah.
Then you have like the food poisoning in San Francisco, and shit was still rocky. And Soldier Field felt like a moment where they had gotten through a weird storm, and it had been almost a year since the day of firing, and they had gotten through. Ed's in a weird spot. He's in a van where everyone else is in the plane. He's doing the Mike Watt tour, and it was strange. And they have this tour that's kind of like in the middle, in these farms, middle of nowhere, and it's kind of falling apart. And he gets the food poisoning, and the crowd's looking for blood, and even Neil Young can't save them. But they come back. They come to these shows, and Soldier Field, and it's arguably the greatest show they've ever done. I know people are going to be yelling about Atlanta 94, and it's obviously in the conversation, but like there was like I don't want to say a victory lap with that show, but it offered it felt like a victory. It felt like we have gotten out of that, And now we are here and we are hitting the fourth gear, and y'all better watch out because here we come. And
I disagree with you.
Do you really? God damn it.
This is
why am I wrong?
It's the same energy though that you're talking about, but flip it on its head. It's like I don't know how long this shit is going to go on. I don't know if we're going to be a band tomorrow. I don't know which way is up at all. We're going to burn this fucking place down. Excuse my language. We are going to burn this place down because what happened, all that stuff happened, right? Like all that crazy stuff happened. After the food poisoning, they canceled the whole freaking tour. They canceled the whole freaking tour. Yeah. And the only shows they put on were those 2 Milwaukee shows and Soldier Field because they contractually had to do
they had to make up the San Diego shows too.
No. They canceled a crap ton of shows.
I know they did. They
canceled them. They made them up later, but at the moment that Soldier Field happened, there was nothing on the horizon except for 2 Milwaukee shows and Soldier Field. There was nothing on the horizon.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
At that moment, I think it was like the day after Golden Gate, they were just like, nope, whole tour's off. And then like maybe 24 hours later, there's like, well, we have to do Milwaukee and Chicago only because contractually. But everything else in those weird fields and all that stuff, like we're going to later this year, which sounds like in 1995, Pearl Jam terms sound like never. I was like, I'm not holding my breath. So it sounded like this is it. This is all there is like we're gonna like this shit on fire after this, like anything, we're gonna rip all the walls down. And I think that when you go to the Milwaukee Summerfest shows where they had the Frogs opening and Eddie's out there singing like we only like all the stuff about being like he's playing the Frog songs about like stardom and stuff like that, and it's a crazy time for them. And Mike gets like exhaustion. Didn't he have to go to the hospital for like freaking exhaustion after that Milwaukee show, like 2 days before Pearl Jam, and like, it just is the most unlikely show, right? Like Mike is exhausted. They barely like crawled to Chicago, although those Milwaukee shows are amazing. Mm-hmm. This show should have been terrible. It should have been the worst. It should have been like phoning
Which
it
is
in.
why it's a tentpole moment because it was
not because yay, but because like we're gonna just like empty the gas can out here. We're gonna do all the things. We're gonna cover Sly and the Family Stone. P.S. That was like such a deep cut because you know why that's a weird thing that they did. You know why that's a weird one? Because Sly and the Family Stone had famously played in Grant Park, which is like basically where this show was, and like caused like such a big commotion that it went down in Chicago like music history. So for Eddie to like slyly nod to like this thing that happened, like during his childhood times, that would have been like in the headlines of the papers, was like wild. And also like what Pearl Jam fan was listening to Sly and the Family Stone in 1995? Right, I mean, other than me.
So I'm changing my reasoning for that to what Jessica said.
No. I'm sorry, but I just think like they're like, well, we're gonna light the car on fire after this, so we might as well like go 100 miles an hour.
It felt. You know what? It felt liberating to listen to and watch.
Oh,
why it was
Yeah.
liberating? Maybe the reasoning is yours versus mine, or probably yours. But like it was a liberating.
Both can be true, right? It's
exactly.
It's not mutually exclusive here.
Sure. Either way, I think it was a fucking huge moment, and I think you have one more to give us, Jessica, and then I'll give you my final one.
I do want to take a minute and talk about the one other thing about that Soldier Field show, which is,
go for it.
I mean, I know that people know that was like 1 second after like was it the last Grateful Dead show on the Grateful Dead stage?
Day or two later, yeah,
like it was the like on their stage. Mm-hmm. I don't think people know that what the vibe of the day was, but there was like a crap ton of Deadheads still in the parking lot on the day of the Pearl Jam show, who were like, doing that Grateful Dead thing of like, hey, I heard that I should check out this band. Like they're using the stage of the Dead, so like I think I'm supposed to see Pearl Jam. Like there was all these hippies there saying like, could I get a ticket? Which was the hardest ticket to get. But I was like, oh my god, that they just heard that they were supposed to have this show. So like there was like a special magic on that show. But that wasn't my last Tentpole moment. My last Tentpole moment is possibly controversial. And it is because it is so standard, but I have like a non-standard reasoning for it. And it is their Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 2017. Now, I feel like it's like we are like deep in the Pearl Jam stuff. Like we like are out here like talking about like the minutia of like when did a guy get a tape in 1990? I mean, like that's minutia, right? Like we know, but
this is Nerdville. Welcome.
Correct. And like, you know, you talk to like people who aren't like that knowledgeable about music and they're just kind of like, oh yeah, Pearl Jam. They are like,
does this story end with you saying you don't like David Letterman?
No, it has nothing to do with David Letterman. David Letterman is fine with me. But when you talk about like, who is Pearl Jam? I like to say like, sometimes you like to just throw in like, oh, you know, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Pearl Jam, or, you know, you get tired of saying like veteran Seattle band, you know, and you're like saying like, who is Pearl Jam? Well, they got in the Rock Hall on their first year of eligibility. I know that is not like the only thing that's important. It's not even that important in the bigger scheme of things. But when you're trying to explain to somebody who doesn't really understand what Pearl Jam is, they are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame without really even trying. Like they just
first ballot. First ballot.
You could argue there were albums, Jessica, where they were consciously not trying.
Oh, absolutely.
Multiple.
But I mean, like, and like, I feel like we're at a point in history when I don't know too many bands that, you know, will be able to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because we don't have culture like that anymore, where like something is such a groundswell that everybody agrees that these people were an important moment. And so I just feel like when you have to talk to people, I mean, I'm not naysaying people who don't know Pearl Jam or whatever, but when you have to explain, like, is Pearl Jam a big deal, or not even a big deal, I don't care about their importance, but like, is Pearl Jam, you know, like good, or is Pearl Jam worth talking about, or all the things that we say, the you know, Cliff Notes is they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
The influence on a number of people, musicians, producers, is bountiful, whether these youngins know it or not.
Oh, of course.
It's for us to teach them, Jessica.
I mean, listen, I'm not trying to like ever defend Pearl Jam. I just think that that's like a weird losing thing. I mean, how many times have I been like in, you know, like whatever, and they're like, oh, Pearl Jam, you know, it's a good band or whatever. I'm like, think what you want to think. Yeah. But if I have to explain who they are, I'm like, they got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame immediately.
Yeah, this wasn't like a 3-year fad in the 90s. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's bigger than that.
And they influence so many currents of rock and roll. Like, hey, let's release every show on a recording. Pearl Jam.
That's another pivotal moment, right? That binaural tour, just every show. You know, you don't have to tape us anymore. We're gonna do it for you. Here you go.
Right. Oh, thank God.
I'm going to wrap it up then, because this is a perfect segue, and it goes back to what you said, Jess, about Roskilde, and then what you just said, Paul, about the binaural tour, and that is night 2 in Seattle, the final night in 2000, because after everything we had been through with Roskilde and the waiting of that summer, and then finally Virginia Beach, and then there's all those shows that fall, kept on getting more, okay, I feel a little bit more comfortable about this band going on and doing more, and then you get those 3 amazing Jones Beach shows, and it just kind of builds and builds and builds, and there's an underlying current of tension, but like in a good way, and like we're building to like a catharsis, and that was night 2 at Key Arena, and finally getting alive again, and it just, that was the moment where I truly felt we're gonna be okay. Because you could feel that way, as you said about Virginia Beach, like, okay, I'm feeling more confident now. But I didn't feel like we are moving forward 100% until that happened. And the performance Alive, that was the night that I think most people would agree was the transformational night, or the final nail in that coffin, so to speak, of the old version of Alive, or the old meaning of Alive, to the new meaning of Alive, the celebratory. We talked about Survivors. This is the Survivor anthem, and it found its new meaning on that night. And
were you at that show?
I was not at that show, but I remember hearing about it. And as soon as the bootlegs came out, and I was in college, when they released that leg in I want to say March or April of the following spring, and I immediately got like 5 or 6 of them. And I made sure to get night 2 in Seattle, because I knew Seattle. Figured night 2 was going to be. And I'm like, oh my God, this was the moment, and we knew everything was going to be okay. We had Matt, We got through the Raskilda thing. We felt like a community again. So that was my final one. And obviously, go ahead.
I have to agree with you because I almost lost my job over that show.
Oh boy!
Ooh, story time.
I had been to, that was another Matt Cameron tour, and so I had to go to as many. Like those shows were after Roskilde, and I had been to other European shows before Roskilde, so like my phone really, really rang on the night of Roskilde, like were you there and stuff like that. Although I was back home, but anyway, I went to many shows in 2000, and I had to like be creative with my time off of work. But by the time of that, like I had gone to Vegas, which was their 10th anniversary, and they played, Chloe Dancer, Crown of Thorns for the first time, and that was like a really big deal, and that was like an emotional night. But then like the Seattle shows, like I had to be at the end. I had to be at the end, and I had to like I didn't even make an excuse. I said I'm just leaving. I don't even remember what day of the week it was. It was like ridiculous. It was like a Monday or something.
You don't know what day of the week it was? You didn't triangulate where you were?
It was Monday. It was Monday because we had to vote the next day.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
In the 2000 election. Lots of nail biting of that election, which we won't revisit. But anyway, I had to be there. And so I just said, I'm not going to be at work. I don't have any more time off. I'm gone, and I'm getting on a plane to Seattle.
I'm sick.
And the thing about that was that, I don't think there was a dry eye on the place. I mean, when they played Alive, there was like big tough dudes crying and like, teenage girls crying and like there was just crying. There was just tears when they played Alive. The whole place was like tears, and that was wild. It was wild. I have never been in that unified emotion before in a show.
Yeah.
I know we got touring bands, and I will tell you, I've worn out that DVD so hard. I remember when it came out, I watched it pretty much every night. I was in college before I went to bed. Pearl Jam people, if you were thinking of doing a one-off, that would be, like a little box set-y kind of Blu-ray thing. If you want to remaster those 2 Seattle shows and put them out, I think people would buy them. I just swear I'm at. I don't want to tell you what to do, but that'd be a good idea, I think, maybe.
That first show though was like meh. It was mid.
But it's part of the crescendo.
Right.
If you got to do just one, then go for that. But I'm just saying it's. Anyway, we've done it. We have succinctly put together 35 years in an hour and 22 minutes, and there's nothing else to talk about. No, I'm so happy that we got to talk to you, Jess, about Music for Rhinos and trying to like pick out some highlights of. I mean, there's so many that we could have spoken about, but I think as we're recording this, it is the exact 35th anniversary. As you're listening to it or watching this, it's a week later, as how we record these things. But on social media today, I don't know how it's been with you guys, but like I have seen so many people just like exuberant and thankful and grateful, and like we don't have a drummer right now. Maybe we will soon enough, but like I feel good today. Do you?
I mean, listen, Pearl Jam has been through so many weird twists and turns.
Yeah.
Like if Matt Cameron is like, I'm going to go do other stuff, and that's fine. Like that's a pivotal moment too. Maybe that's a tentpole we'll talk about in the future of like this moment when Pearl Jam, took a different turn in the road. And, but I just feel like this is our band, and this is what the band does. That it just
evolves.
The band abides.
The band abides. There you go.
The band abides. I love it.
Cannot be topped.
Cannot be topped. I'll tell you what, Pearl Jam No 35, they are collectively eligible to run for president. And who wouldn't vote for this group of people to be president right now? Anyways, I'll leave you with that. Music for Rhinos, Billboard, 2feetthick.com. What else, Jessica, haven't you done that I can credit you for?
Oh, I mean, I've done a lot of different things, but the funny thing is that like when I was a teenager, I was like, how can I, interview Pearl Jam and like, pay my rent at the same time. No. So like, I just always wanted to be able to contribute to the story, so I've worked at a lot of places. That's fine. I mean, but you've hit the highlights. Spin, Billboard. There's a little Spotify in there lately and in the last couple of years ago. And, that's fine. But the biggest thing that I'm proud of is that all back to a long time ago, not mid 90s, I was looking out for the little Pearl Jam nuggets that I could weave together and keep the story, available.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
for being available tonight. How about that?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to point out, this is a signed poster of Ernie Banks.
Oh, cool.
Eddie signed that?
Not Eddie. Ernie Banks signed it.
Ernie Banks himself.
I just want to say, I grew up in Chicago, and so, I almost put Wrigley Field stuff, and I wanted to point out, the Wrigley Field thing meant a lot to me. I almost put it on my Tentpole. I just couldn't justify what a big deal it was that he was able to meet Ernie Banks and bring him on stage and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that was
that's
a
cool shout out. I appreciate you for that.
Jessica, thank you for joining us. Anybody who is watching right now, please go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications here on YouTube. And if you're listening only, Paul,
you're going to rate, you're going to review, and you're hopefully going to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Feed that algorithm so Jessica can feed her daughter and not sit on the couch benevolently watching her in perpetuity.
I was like, how's he going to stick this landing? There we go. Okay, great. Many links below for great causes, ours and other causes, and we thank you in advance for doing so. We will be back next week. So many great episodes to come before the end of the year closes. Guess who's going to be coming up soon? Monk 1. So we'll talk about posters with him. Is it next week? Could be. I forget. I don't really know. Anyways, we'll see you next week. And until we do, you're listening to or watching
The State of Love and Trust.